So, a few weeks ago, I was at the grocery store when I stumbled across a what to do moment. And this is gonna be hard to believe, but on the way back to my car, I noticed a $100 bill lying on the ground. And first, I just looked around. And of course, just to see, is anybody watching this? Is anybody seeing this? And then, in the span of about 20 seconds, I considered all my options. 1, just ignore it and leave it. Whoever dropped it is probably coming back to look for it. 2, wait and ignore thought 1, just take it. 3, okay, really? You need to take this inside and give it to a manager. I mean, surely someone's gonna come back for it. But 4, if I take it back, the employee is probably just gonna keep it. And so finally, I think I should take it. Better me than anyone else. And so with all of these options competing in my mind, the overall question ultimately was, what should I do? And if we took a poll of everyone in your group, we'd probably get a variety of answers. I mean, some of you might say, oh, I would take it to a manager. And others might say, take the money. And some of you might wonder if you were being pranked with that $100 bill lying on the ground. But no matter how you answer, the truth is that knowing what to do, it's not always a simple choice. It would be so nice if the right thing was always clear and always obvious. But we all know that hardly is ever the case. I mean, sometimes the right thing, it's never obvious. I mean, maybe you have a friend at work who seems to continuously rub people the wrong way, and as a result, they don't get invited to hang with the group after work. Do you tell them why? Or maybe you have a friend who is inadvertently condescending to you on just about every subject. Do you need to confront them, or is it better just to avoid the conflict? Or maybe your accountant has suggested a way to save money in your taxes. And even though it's technically legal, the deduction is like right up against that line. Or maybe your friend's boyfriend has become a little more friendly with you than you're comfortable with. Is this something even worth addressing, or are you just simply overreacting? What's the right thing to do in these situations? And sometimes the right thing costs us something. Specifically, it cost me the $100 as I did decide to give the money to the store manager. But sometimes doing the right thing, it costs us more than $100. You know the right thing to do is to be honest about some frustrations with your significant other, but you know that if you're honest, a lot of hard conversations will follow. That'll cost you. You know the right thing isn't to be in that relationship anymore, but if you break up, you're gonna be single and you're gonna be alone. It's gonna cost you. You know the right thing isn't to knowingly let somebody secretly adjust their sales numbers at work, but if you get involved, that relationship will end, and it will end badly. Sometimes what's right, it feels complicated. And even when we do know what's right, it can be difficult to actually do it. So what do we do when we're not sure what's right? More than that, what do we do when we know what's right, but doing so will cost us dearly? And Joseph was actually faced with one of these decisions. And it wasn't just about returning found money or having a tough conversation with a friend. No, it was far more difficult than that. This was a decision that would end up having a huge impact on his entire life. It was a decision that would cost him big time. Now, Joseph was given a job in the house of an officer of Pharaoh. And you probably know this, but the Pharaoh was like a king, an emperor, and a president all rolled into one. Whatever Pharaoh said, that's exactly what happened. And so even though working for an officer of the Pharaoh was a privilege, it also carried a lot of stress. Depending on the situation, it could either go really well or it could go really poorly. And there was no telling what situation Joseph was going to walk into. But as we mentioned last week, the writer of Joseph's story was quick to point out that God was with Joseph and that Joseph had favor with the official whose name was Potiphar. That means that Potiphar was a fan of Joseph's. So let's pick up the story. The Lord was with Joseph so that he prospered, and he lived in the house of his Egyptian master. When his master saw that the Lord was with him and that the Lord gave him success in everything he did, Joseph found favor in his eyes and became his attendant. Potiphar put him in charge of his household, and he entrusted to his care everything he owned. From the time he put him in charge of his household and of all that he owned, the Lord blessed the household of the Egyptian because of Joseph. The blessing of the Lord was on everything Potiphar had, both in the house and in the field. So Potiphar left everything he had in Joseph's care. With Joseph in charge, he did not concern himself with anything except the food he ate. So things weren't so bad for Joseph because Potiphar trusted him. And things weren't bad for Potiphar because with Joseph in charge, he was thriving. But then, as you may know, things took a weird turn. Now Joseph was well built and handsome, and after a while his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, "Come to bed with me." So it's not an understatement to say that this made things really complicated. Because Joseph was a servant, he was required to obey not only Potiphar, but also his wife. And if he refused her commands, there was nothing holding her back from punishing Joseph. He could be kicked out of their household, or it could even cost him his very life. So chances are Joseph knew that doing the right thing, it was really going to cost him. While it's easy for us to judge today, Joseph had zero power, so it wouldn't have been shocking if he did exactly what she asked him to do, if only just to save his life. So what did Joseph do? He refused. "With me in charge," he told her, "my master does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns he has entrusted to my care. No one is greater in this house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" And though she spoke to Joseph day after day, he refused to go to bed with her or even be with her. And basically, out of respect for his master Potiphar and out of an even bigger respect for his God, Joseph simply did the next right thing. Joseph didn't make his decision based on how things might turn out for him, like losing his job or even his life. He made his decision based on what was right. And what was right was turning down Potiphar's wife. And yes, it was complicated. And yes, it was challenging. But it was the right thing to do. And it was costly. Because after Joseph rejected her advances, Potiphar's wife falsely accused him of rape. Like Potiphar believed his wife and had Joseph thrown into prison. It's not exactly the happy ending any of us are hoping for when you do the right thing. But Joseph didn't make his decision based on what it might mean for him in his future. He did what was right for God and trusted God with the outcome. And the outcome for Joseph in this situation, it just wasn't great. But there's a word to consider whenever we're faced with the challenge to do the right thing. And that word, it's integrity. We're all familiar with that word. But to put it simply, integrity means being the kind of person who does what's right, regardless of the outcome and regardless of who's around. And sometimes doing the right thing, it's going to get you applause. But sometimes it just absolutely won't. And sometimes doing the right thing will cost you something, and then sometimes it won't. And sometimes doing the right thing, it's gonna make you look good, and sometimes it's gonna make you look foolish. And sometimes doing the right thing will bring about a favorable outcome for you, and sometimes it just won't. We don't get to decide how things turn out, but we do get to decide what kind of person we wanna be. And being a person of integrity will lead to a life with less regret, more respect, and a better idea of what to do in any and every situation. So, when you don't know what to do the next right thing. When you don't know what to do, just do the next right thing. And chances are, we'll never find ourselves in the do or die kind of situation Joseph found himself in, but we will find ourselves in all kinds of situations where we'll have to decide what to do without knowing how it's going to play out in our lives. It could go better than we thought, or it could go worse. But when we make our decisions with integrity, based on what's right, we're living lives we can be proud of. Just think of one current situation where you know the right thing to do, but are afraid to do it. Like, what are you afraid of? If fear wasn't a factor, like, what would you do? If you already knew the outcome, what would you do? And at the same time, determine what kind of person you want to be. And I'm not talking 5 years from now. What kind of person do you want to be this week? What kind of person do you want to be today? Like, what do you need to do today that will set you up to be the kind of person who can be proud of their decisions? Not because they're easy and not because people approve, but because they're the right decision. And here's the thing. Honestly, most of us know the right thing to do in most situations, but it is fear that keeps us from acting how we know we should. But when we refrain from doing the right thing, that fear and inaction, it's gonna keep us from becoming who we want to be right now. That's why learning to live with integrity, living in a way on the outside that matches what we think and believe on the inside, is the most direct route to becoming who we wanna be. But that doesn't always make it easy to do. We don't need to know the outcome. We just need to know the next right thing and then do the next right thing. And that's a big part of why we have groups just like this. We all need a group of people who can help us figure out the next right thing in complicated situations. That's why the conversations we have in this group are often more important than anything we say in these talks, because these conversations are specific to you and to your life. So think about a situation where you need to do the next right thing. Think about exactly what you need to do. And just know, you don't have to make that decision alone. You can tap into the help of God and the help of the people around you. When you don't know what to do the next right thing.